Part 1. The first breath of the morning. When the first light enters the room, before the noise of the world intrudes, you are given a moment that is both fragile and powerful. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who bore the weight of an empire, once reminded himself, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Carl Jung, the great explorer of the human psyche, would echo this in his own way. "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." And here, in the quiet of the morning, these two truths meet. The very act of waking is not just routine, it's an initiation. Across cultures and centuries, human beings have marked the morning as sacred. Roman philosophers rose with the sun, believing the dawn was a rehearsal for rebirth. Zen monks in Japan bow to the day with stillness, beginning with silence before a single word is spoken. Even in today's fast world, scientists tell us the brain at waking is in a liminal state, soft, open, impressionable, like clay that will harden into the form of your day. But what do we do with this clay? Many of us reach for the phone, flooding the mind with notifications, headlines, and demands before our lungs have fully expanded with air. This is not waking, this is drowning. We submerge ourselves before we've even learned to float. The Stoics remind us, the first breath is a gift. To treat it as ordinary is to insult existence itself. Gratitude is not simply a polite thought, it's a survival strategy. It's the shield we lift against the day's inevitable storms. Think of it this way. When the first breath fills your lungs, it's not just oxygen. It's possibility. It's a reset that countless men and women before us never received. Marcus woke in his military tent under the weight of empire. A monk wakes in a wooden hall to the sound of a bell. And you wake to the ordinary miracle of being alive. So, before the noise comes, ask yourself, am I going to wake with gratitude, or am I going to wake with chaos? Because whichever you choose in this fragile moment will echo through every hour that follows. Part 2. Gratitude as survival, not luxury. Gratitude is often sold to us today as a lifestyle choice, something to add into your morning routine, like green smoothies or a new planner. But the Stoics didn't see it this way. For them, gratitude was not a luxury. It was survival. Epictetus, born into slavery, stripped of freedom and dignity, once said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Gratitude, for him, wasn't a warm feeling. It was armor, the recognition that life takes more than it gives, and yet what remains is still enough. Seneca, writing in the midst of political intrigue and constant threat, reminded his friends, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." He understood that the endless pursuit of more wealth, more recognition, more pleasure, creates poverty in the soul. Gratitude interrupts this hunger. Modern psychology has caught up with this ancient wisdom. Studies show that practicing gratitude lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, and rewires the brain toward resilience. In soldiers returning from war, gratitude exercises have been shown to reduce symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. For those of us not facing war, but facing the invisible battles of deadlines, bills, and fractured relationships, gratitude is still the same medicine. Think of someone who has suffered loss, the death of a loved one, the collapse of a marriage, the sudden end of a dream. In those moments, gratitude does not come naturally. And yet, those who manage to whisper even a small thank you, for one more sunrise, for one loyal friend, for breath still entering the lungs, often find a strange, unexpected strength. Gratitude does not erase the pain, but it gives the pain a container. It stops it from flooding everything. The Stoics would tell us, if you want to survive the day, don't count what you lack, count what remains. Because what remains is always enough to live with dignity. So when you wake, don't treat gratitude as decoration. Treat it as weaponry, not a ritual of comfort, but a discipline of survival. Because the truth is this, life is not generous to everyone equally. But the moment you recognize what you already hold, you reclaim power from what you cannot control. Part 3. the seed of enoughness. In every age, human beings have struggled with one relentless question. Is this enough? The Stoics believed the answer was already here. Epictetus, stripped of status and comfort, insisted, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. What you carry inside you determines whether you live in abundance or in poverty. Not the numbers in your bank account, not the praise from strangers, not even the security of tomorrow." Buddhism echoes the same truth. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." Two traditions, worlds apart, converge on a single point. Enoughness is not out there. It is here. Modern neuroscience gives us a curious confirmation. The brain is wired for what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill, our tendency to quickly adapt to gains, whether it's money, possessions, or achievements. We get the promotion, the new car, the admiration, and for a moment it feels like enough. Then, within weeks, our baseline resets and we crave the next thing. The cycle never ends. The Stoics warned against this treadmill 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He was the emperor of Rome, yet he understood the throne could never quiet the hunger of the mind. But what if enoughness isn't a feeling we chase, but a seed we water daily? Think of the morning. When the sun first spills across your face, that light is already enough. The air in your lungs is already enough. The body that carries you, wounded, aging, imperfect as it may be, is already enough. We live in an economy built on dissatisfaction. Advertisers whisper constantly, "You are not enough. Buy this, achieve this, change this, and then you will be." But enoughness is not for sale. It's a discipline, practice, a choice you make each time you pause and remind yourself, this moment, as it stands, is already complete. The paradox is this: the moment you stop demanding more from life, you begin to live fully within it. Enoughness is not the death of ambition, it is the grounding of it. When you recognize the present as whole, you stop running from emptiness and begin building from fullness. And here lies the seed. Every morning you are handed enough. Not less, not more. Just enough to live, to act, to love, to be. The question is, will you water this seed? Or will you ignore it while chasing shadows? Part 4. Tuning the frequency of the soul. Every instrument must be tuned before it can produce music. The same is true of the human soul. The morning is not just about waking the body. It is about aligning the inner strings, so that when the day begins to play upon you, the sound that emerges is not noise, but harmony. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What he meant was this: if the first thoughts of the day are chaos, envy, or fear, then the entire day is stained by that frequency. If the first thoughts are gratitude, clarity, and resolve, then the day, no matter how heavy, takes on the resonance of strength. Think of it as frequency. Every person emits one, not in the mystical sense alone, but in the observable. Walk into a room and you feel it. Some people radiate calm, others tension. Some people uplift, others drain. This is not accident. It is the result of inner tuning. Mystics across traditions knew this. The desert fathers of early Christianity began their mornings in prayerful silence. Sufi poets sang of the dawn as a time when the soul could hear the music of the unseen. Zen monks strike a single bell at sunrise, not to wake the body, but to tune the spirit. And today, neuroscience shows that our brain's early waves, alpha and theta states, are highly impressionable. This is when habits, affirmations, and intentions sink deepest. The Stoics didn't have MRIs, but they knew this truth intuitively. The first moments of the day decide the rest. So ask yourself, when you wake, what frequency are you tuning to? Are you letting the world's static fill your head before your own thoughts can settle? Or are you deliberately aligning your mind with what matters most? Gratitude, discipline, courage, love? A musician cannot control how the world will play upon his instrument, but he can control whether it is in tune. You cannot control the world's chaos, but you can decide the state of your soul when you meet it. The Stoics would say, The morning is rehearsal for the entire day. If you do not tune yourself, the world will do it for you, and its music is rarely gentle. So tune deliberately. Align the strings of thought, gratitude, and intention. Because once your frequency is set, the storms may rage, but you will still resonate with strength. Part 5. The Invisible Battle for Attention. If the Stoics were alive today, they would not only warn us about anger, pleasure, or fear, they would warn us about distraction. Because in our time, attention is not simply scattered. It is stolen. Every morning, the battle begins before we even rise from bed. Notifications blink. Messages demand. The endless scroll offers the illusion of connection, while silently draining the very thing we need most: presence. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with the temptation of comfort. The warm bed, the soft blanket, the desire to stay hidden from duty. We wrestle with something even more insidious: the infinite lure of screens, the pull of other people's noise, the addiction to what is urgent instead of what is important. Seneca once warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." He spoke of wasted years. Today, we waste minutes stolen in tiny, invisible fragments, the quick check of the phone that becomes an hour, the small drift of focus that becomes a day. This is not accidental. The modern world has built an economy around your attention. Billion-dollar companies design algorithms that know your fears, your desires, your weaknesses better than you do. Every scroll, every click, every glance monetized. What the Stoics called guarding the mind, we must now call guarding our attention, because where your attention goes, your life follows. Focus is not just productivity, it is existence itself. What you choose to see, to dwell upon, to return to, becomes the fabric of your days. The invisible battle, then, is not fought with swords or shields, but with choices. Do you begin the morning with silence or with noise? Do you claim your mind before the world does? Or do you let it be colonized by whatever flashes first across the screen? The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining the challenges of the day before they arrived. In our age, this practice must include imagining distraction, seeing it for what it is, and refusing to be captured. Attention is life's most valuable currency. Spend it on what endures: wisdom, presence, love, the work that matters. Refuse to waste it on the shallow and the passing. For the world will fight every morning to claim your mind. But as Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And perhaps in our age we must add, you have power over your attention, not the world's demands. Realize this, and you will find freedom. Part 6. Releasing the weight of yesterday. Every new morning is born clean, but most of us drag the corpse of yesterday into it. We wake, not into the freshness of the day, but into the heaviness of memory. Old regrets, yesterday's arguments, unfinished tasks, the ache of mistakes we cannot undo. The Stoics would not have us carry this weight. Epictetus taught, do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. Yesterday has already happened. To resist it is to demand the impossible, for the river to flow backward. The Buddhists called this clinging, attachment to what has already dissolved. The Buddha compared it to carrying a burning coal in your hand. It is you who suffers, even as you refuse to let it drop. Modern psychology calls it rumination. Neural studies show how replaying the past in loops not only clouds the mind but also erodes physical well-being, elevating stress hormones, keeping the body in a false fight it cannot win. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the busiest man in Rome, wrote to himself, do not let the future trouble you. You will come to it, if you must, with the same reason that equips you for the present. But the same applies to the past. Do not let it shackle you. You survived it once. There is no need to suffer it again in memory. The morning, then, is not simply about waking the body, it is about choosing to lay yesterday down. Imagine it. With each breath, you place yesterday's burdens beside the bed. With each step into the day, you refuse to carry them further. This is not forgetfulness. The Stoics did not preach amnesia. They preached freedom. To learn from yesterday, yes, but not to live inside it. To take its lessons, and then, as a farmer scatters husks after harvest, release what no longer nourishes. Ask yourself each dawn, what am I still carrying that is no longer mine to bear? And then, with courage, let it go. Because life is never lived in yesterday. It is lived here, in the silent miracle of the morning. And every day grants us the same invitation. Begin again, unburdened. Part 7. The Discipline of the Mind. Marcus Aurelius left us a line that feels almost like a spell. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This was not poetry to him. It was survival. As emperor, he could not control the tides of war, the sickness of his children, the whispers of betrayal in the Senate. But he could control the frame through which he saw them, his judgments, his inner discipline. And now modern neuroscience echoes this ancient truth. The brain is not fixed. It is plastic. Each thought strengthens a pathway. Each repetition deepens a groove. What you dwell upon, you become. Train your mind in panic, and chaos becomes your default. Train your mind in gratitude, patience, and perspective, and calm becomes your baseline, even in storms. This is why the Stoics practiced daily reflection, meditations, and deliberate habits of thought. They knew that the mind, left undirected, bends toward distraction and fear. But the mind, disciplined, becomes a fortress. Here we introduce the third morning phrase, simple but powerful. I control my mind. Say it not as a boast, but as a reminder. Because the world will try to convince you otherwise, that your peace depends on traffic, on headlines, on the moods of strangers. The Stoics answer, no. Your peace depends only on your mind. Few embodied this more than Epictetus. Born a slave, his leg crippled by his master's cruelty, he lived in chains for much of his early life. And yet, he became one of the freest men in history. How? By realizing that while his body could be imprisoned, his mind could not. His dignity, his judgment, his will, those were his own. Epictetus said, lameness is an impediment to the leg, but not to the will. He understood what we too easily forget. Freedom begins in thought. Even when denied outward liberty, he cultivated an inner one so vast that centuries later, his words still free others. This is the discipline of the mind. Not to control the chaos of the world, but to control the lens through which we see it. Not to command fortune, but to command thought. Not to bend events to our will, but to bend our will toward wisdom. And each morning, as you rise, you can rehearse this discipline. I cannot control the world. I will release yesterday. I control my mind. That is not resignation. That is power, the only power that cannot be taken from you. Part 8. Kindness as Strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, kindness is invincible if it is sincere, free from hypocrisy, and not an act. He was not naive. He ruled an empire filled with treachery, war, and betrayal. He knew cruelty intimately. Yet he insisted that kindness, not dominance, not fear, not brute force, was the unconquerable posture of a truly disciplined soul. Contrast this with our culture's obsession with toughness. We celebrate hardness. The cold professional who feels nothing, the influencer who preaches ruthlessness, the entrepreneur who calls compassion weakness. But toughness is fragile. It fractures under pressure. True strength, the Stoics knew, is not in being unfeeling. It is in choosing gentleness even when the world invites you to retaliate. Carl Jung once said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Modern psychology calls this shadow work. The courage to confront your hidden anger, fear, envy, and pain, rather than projecting them outward. When you understand your own inner shadows, you no longer lash out blindly. You meet the shadows of others with patience, because you recognize them as familiar. This is where kindness becomes more than a social virtue. It becomes a spiritual discipline. To practice kindness is not to be naive. It is to be radically aware of your own capacity for cruelty and to choose against it again and again. So here is the fourth phrase of the Stoic morning. Kindness is my superpower. It is not weakness. It is a weapon stronger than hate, sharper than revenge, more enduring than fear. Kindness disarms the enemy, heals the friend, and frees the one who offers it. Marcus called it invincible, because no one can take it from you, and no one can defeat it. To meet anger with anger is ordinary. To meet anger with kindness is unassailable. And so, as you step into the day, remember, toughness may impress, but only kindness transforms. Part 9. The shortness of time. The Stoics carried a constant reminder, memento mori, remember you must die. To us, it may sound grim, but to them it was not an obsession with death. It was a liberation into life. For only when we remember our end do we wake fully to our beginning. Plato called time the moving image of eternity. Each moment is not a possession, but a flicker borrowed light from the eternal fire. To live as though time were endless is to fall asleep. To live as though time were scarce is to finally open your eyes. Other traditions have carried this same wisdom. The samurai rose each day with the meditation. Today is a good day to die, not in despair, but in readiness, so that they might meet life's challenges without fear. Medieval Christians kept skulls on their desks, not in morbidity, but to keep vanity in check. And today, hospice research echoes the same chorus. When the dying are asked about their regrets, they rarely wish for more time at the office. They regret not living deeply, not loving openly, not being present when presence mattered most. This is why the Stoics, though often misunderstood as cold, were fiercely devoted to the present. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Here we add the fifth phrase of the Stoic dawn. This moment is all I have. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, this, now. And this phrase is not an invitation to hedonism. It is the call to eudaimonia, Aristotle's word for a flourishing life, the life of meaning and virtue. The Stoics and Aristotle differed in philosophy, but they agreed on this. Fulfillment is not hidden in a distant future. It is practiced in the small, deliberate choices of the present. To wake in the morning, then, is not simply to open your eyes. It is to recognize you are standing on borrowed ground. Time is not yours. It is a gift, fragile and fleeting. And the only way to honor it is not by hoarding it, but by inhabiting it. So ask yourself, before you are swept into the noise of the day, if this moment is all I have, how will I live it? That question, honestly answered, is the beginning of wisdom. Part 10. The final reset. Every dawn is a reset, a chance to re-enter the world with clarity, courage, and discipline. The Stoics offered us 5 truths, simple, but inexhaustible in their depth. 1. I'm grateful to be here. Life is not owed, but gifted. 2. Yesterday doesn't own me. The past is not a prison, but a teacher left behind. 3. I control my mind. Events unfold, but my thoughts are mine to shape. 4. Kindness is my superpower. To choose gentleness over cruelty is invincible strength. 5. This moment is all I have. Time is not promised. Eternity is contained in the now. Across cultures, humanity has always understood the sacred weight of mornings. In Hindu tradition, the first words of the day are prayers of gratitude, aligning the soul before the world intrudes. In Islam, the dawn prayer, begins the day in surrender and clarity. In Christianity, morning devotionals are offered as a shield, preparing the heart before the battles of the day. Different languages, different rituals, yet the same intuition. How you begin determines how you live. And so the Stoic reset is not merely philosophical. It is practical. It is emotional. It is survival. Because every morning, you are handed a battlefield. Distractions, chaos, injustice, temptation. You cannot control the terrain, but you can choose how you step onto it. The final truth of the morning is this: you are free to choose how the day begins. No empire, no boss, no storm, no shadow can take that from you. To train your soul in these truths is to train like a warrior, not of weapons but of spirit. Each repetition strengthens the muscle of awareness. Each morning phrase is a strike against forgetfulness. So tomorrow, before the noise takes you, whisper them to yourself. Not as empty mantras, but as armor. I'm grateful to be here. Yesterday doesn't own me. I control my mind. Kindness is my superpower. This moment is all I have. This is not theory. This is training. This is war. This is freedom.